It's an early morning in late March. Welcome to St Pancras Station in London with my co-host Sir John Betjeman, patron saint of the English country branch line and of the doomed Gothic. As poet laureate, Sir John helped save this particular bit of doomed Gothic, so it can now be the end of a branch line of the European high-speed network. 6 months ago, Slow Travel Turtle and I set out to find out what would be the furthest you can get from London in 24 hours by bus. Today, the difficult second album. We're replacing the bus with the train, but the main rule stays the same. Not necessarily the longest mileage travelled, but the furthest station you can get to in 24 hours from here at St Pancras. 24 hours start when the train doors close. And my first train is, I hope, one of these over here. After 2 years of enforced absence, with COVID restrictions lifting, it's liberating to be checking in for Eurostar in the St Pancras Undercroft again. We're underneath the trains here, the pillars holding the tracks and platforms up, spaced out to fit the barrels of beer from Burton-on-Trent that used to arrive at St Pancras twice daily by train to quench the thirst of insatiable London. We're catching what is currently the first train of the day off the island, the 0701 to Paris Nord. I think I know the furthest away point I can get to in the next 24 hours, but we're going to need 8 connections to work perfectly across the course of the next day. We're just waiting for the Eurostar to close its doors and begin its 200-mile non-stop journey to Paris, and then we'll start our clock. That's 7:01, bang on time. Confusingly, Eurostars leave St Pancras heading north, but we're soon curving round the converted gasometers of Camden, diving under East London, breaching for air like a whale at Stratford and Dagenham, racing across the bleak estuary marshland, down again under the Thames and out into Kent at 300 kilometres an hour, leaping over a very murky Medway River and heading for the sea. Into the Channel Tunnel, and thanks to the wonders of 1980s technology, in a blink of a turtle's eye, we're out again. Effortlessly reaching France in just 20 minutes, where the Georgians and the Victorians, and even Harold Wilson's white heat of technology tried and failed. My watch may have just gone forward an hour, but we're playing with a true 24-hour window here. If I stay within the Central European time zone that we've just entered, the clock now stops at 08:01 tomorrow morning. We'll be having none of that Phileas Fogg rubbish here. Past Lille, a city that has based its regeneration on the high-speed railway, we curve south on a beeline for Paris, through the former coalfields of the Pas-de-Calais, still marked by Alp-like slag heaps and scarred by economic depression that has led to these towns becoming footholds for the far right. These endless fields of northern France are speckled with the ranks of white gravestones of the tens of thousands slaughtered here in 1914 to 18. With war once again wreaking its havoc on the European continent, there's an added poignancy to these misty expanses this morning.
13 heures locales.
With the first of several tight connections looming in Paris, we need a punctual arrival at the Gare du Nord. There was a worrying moment when the Eurostar slowed to let a TGV from Arras out in front, but we're now coursing through the capital's suburbs, overtaking double-deck RER commuter trains pretty much on time. This is Paris Gare du Nord, and inevitably we're right at the back of our quarter-mile-long Eurostar, so we need to hot-foot it along the platform. By passenger numbers, the Gare du Nord is Europe's busiest station. When it opened in the mid-19th century, it was rapidly a victim of its own success. Within 20 years, the original Gare du Nord was moved stone by stone to Lille, and a larger station built on this site. As further evidence these are not normal times, there are French Red Cross volunteers here on the concourse, welcoming Ukrainian refugees arriving on trains from the east. We've got to head for the Gare de l'Est for our next train. These two stations are like St Pancras and Euston, not quite next door, but too close to take the metro. So it's a quick walk through rainy Paris, which can mean only one thing. Cue accordion music. We're at the Gare de l'Est with a solid quarter of an hour to spare. There's one sound that tells you that you are nowhere else on earth than a French railway station.
Mesdames, Messieurs, bonjour et bienvenue en gare de Paris-Est.
We continue to trip over history here. The Gare de l'Est was a departure point for the front for thousands of French soldiers in both the Franco-Prussian War and World War I. But our second train is a gleaming white and red exemplar of the new Europe, a German high-speed intercity express jointly operated by the French state railways, off on a passport-free journey to Stuttgart.
Mesdames, Messieurs, bonjour. Au nom de SNCF et de la Deutsche Bahn, je vous souhaite la bienvenue à bord de l'IFIA destination de Stuttgart.
And with just 11 minutes to make our next connection, most importantly, it's leaving Paris spot on time.
Nous sommes à votre disposition durant votre voyage. Pour votre confort,
The ligne à grande vitesse Est Européenne can claim to be Europe's fastest railway line. In 2007, a souped-up TGV reached 575 km per hour along here, still the world conventional rail speed record. We're proceeding at a more leisurely pace through the Champagne region today, in special tunnels under some of the vineyard. French high-speed lines are littered with stations in the middle of nowhere, claiming to serve entire regions. On this line alone there are stops called Meuse, Lorraine and Champagne-Ardenne. They're nicknamed Gare de Betterave, beetroot stations, because they basically serve arable fields. There are few trains and usually fewer passengers. As we speed into Alsace, an ill-defined linguistic boundary of place names is crossed, with the town of Sarrebourg to the right and Oberstinzel just to the left, alongside old chimeras like Vieux-Lixheim. Then we punch through the Vosges Mountains and out into the Rhineland. We may have been travelling on a German train, but we're not leaving France just yet. We're leaping off the ICE a few miles short of the border under the rust-red arches of Strasbourg station. We're arriving on time, but our onward connection is expected to leave at least 10 minutes late, letting a delayed cross-country TGV out in front. We're off the high-speed network for a bit now, though our next leg is fast by French regional standards. The service down to Basel is called a TER 200 because it does 200 km an hour. Spot the livery incorporates the Alsatian name of the region, Celsace. The best thing about these trains is that they recycle former long-distance coaches called Corails. They are beautifully retro, but also supremely comfortable and smooth riding, despite their advanced age. We're heading south now, the Vosges Mountains to our right, their lower slopes sprinkled with idyllic-looking Alsatian wine villages and their summits pecked with castles. Invisible to our left, the Rhine and the German border. In these culturally contested borderlands, both watershed and watercourse have served as frontiers, and the lands between swapped ownerships frequently. The dogleg east to Strasbourg may seem a bit odd. In this challenge, efficient use of time is vital. If we'd waited in Paris for a direct TGV to Switzerland, we'd have ended up arriving in Basel later than via this route. We took a bit of a risk by putting in extra connections, and with this train now running nearly 15 minutes late, it may still end up not paying off. Our last stop in France is St. Louis. In this extended urban area that covers the tri-point where three countries meet, this is actually a suburb of Basel, but in a completely different country. Almost immediately after crossing the border into Switzerland, the railway curves through the middle of Basel Zoo. Know when to look and you'll spot the rear of a rhino. Trains from France stop at separate distant platforms at Basel. In days before Switzerland joined Schengen, this was so you could walk through this customs and immigration hall. Now all that paraphernalia has been swept away and you can head unhindered to the main station hall with its beautiful alpine murals, a amuse-bouche for delights to come. With 15 minutes of our 25-minute connection time lost to delays, there's no time to dawdle. Time, tide and the trains of the Schweizerische Bundesbahnen wait for no turtle. Gods of the Helvetic cantons be praised, our intercity to Zurich conveys that great gift to civilization, a restaurant car, and I'm in urgent need of a late lunch. After France, you really notice that Swiss trains swish along much more slowly. But this is a network built for reliability and for connections. If we get to Zurich 10 minutes earlier, everyone will just have to wait longer for their connections. How inefficient. Besides, it's 3 PM and everyone's in the restaurant car drinking peppermint tea. What's the hurry? A delicious dish of freshly cooked truffle ravioli arrives from the kitchen as we plunge through the Hauenstein base tunnel, constructed while the rest of Europe was distracted fighting World War I. Never mind the oversized pile of francs I had to hand the waiter for my lunch, there is no better way to travel.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a few minutes we're arriving in Zurich Bank Station on platform 4. Your next connecting services here in Zurich at 15:33 to Zug at Goldlaut Milan, platform 7.
Anywhere else in the world I'd be worried about a 7-minute connection at the country's largest station onto an infrequent international express. But if it'll work anywhere, it'll be Zurich. And as the announcement just made clear, It's a connection with the SBB seal of approval. A quick trot round to platform 7 and here's our Eurocity train for the long haul south to Milano. These lovely new trains are called Gironos, which means buzzard in Switzerland's fourth language, Romansh. These trains don't go anywhere near any Romansh-speaking lands. No standard gauge train can, but I guess picking a name from a language spoken by 0.5% of Swiss people is a canny way to navigate the linguistic politics of this nation. Anyway, these are great trains, silent, smooth, well served with facilities and partially low floor. With 2 Gironos coupled together, we're leaving Zurich an astonishing 22 coaches long, though we'll lose half at the Italian border. A few minutes tunnelling under the Zurich suburbs and we're soon climbing above the vast Zürichsee, the first lake of this multi-lake journey. Residents of this bank can only look in envy at the so-called Golden Coast opposite, supposedly one of the richest places in Europe, though I think we may only be talking relative, comparative poverty on this side of the lake. Given the German for train is Zug, it will never cease to amuse me that Switzerland offers the opportunity to take a Zug to Zug. Apparently the town has been called that since the 13th century and the name has something to do with fishing rights, but, well, I like it. We're into the spiritual heartland of Switzerland now. Over on the other side of the lake is the Rütli Meadow, alleged site of an oath taken in 1307 to create the first Swiss confederacy. The lake goes by the wonderful name of the Vierwaldstätter See, the lake of the 4 forest cantons. For some reason, non-German speakers seem to prefer to call it Lake Luzerne rather than that particular tongue twister. Past the end of the lake, it all gets a bit more businesslike as we accelerate into the Gotthard Base Tunnel, the world's longest railway tunnel, 6 kilometres longer than its channel counterpart. It bypasses a beautiful classic mountain route, but the map on the in-train screen shows why. The spiralling classic route is in black. And for this challenge, the 30 minutes the tunnel saves are crucial. The tunnel takes us under the Polenta Graben, the Polenta Ditch, the line separating German and Italian-speaking Switzerland. Its better-known cousin, the Rosti Graben, separates the French and German areas. So we've crossed the European watershed into the Mediterranean drainage basin, into the Italian-speaking canton of Ticino, where the hills are more wooded, the villas more pastel, and the campaniles more frequent. Having passed through the Ticino's two largest cities, Bellinzona and Lugano, we're now coursing along the shores of the Lago di Lugano. Through the murk we get our first glimpse of Italy on the other shore, in the form of the odd little enclave of Campioni d'Italia, a town wholly surrounded by Switzerland and dominated by the bulk of its casino building, which, until it went bankrupt a few years back, was Europe's largest gambling den. We're rolling into the border town of Chiasso, so tightly balanced on the frontier that the far end of the platform is in Italy. Here we stop, and wait, and wait. For the first time on the journey, vaccine certificates are scanned and bags checked. The Italians are clearly operating a full COVID and customs border at Chiasso, but no one's told the timetable compilers. When we do finally set off for the short hop across the border to Como, we're 20 minutes late. I have a half-hour connection in Milano, so it's a nail-biting sojourn in Chiasso. Someone found it fun though. The group of German ladies in my carriage are clearly going to be recounting the tale of how the nice Italian customs officer seriously asked them if they had more than 10,000 euros in cash for some time to come. Perhaps imbued by the spirit of being at the controls of a Swiss train, our new Italian driver does seem to be showing some determination to regain lost minutes as we fly through the chestnut woods of northern Lombardy and into Italy's industrial heartland. In truth, Italian railways are pretty punctual, and no, it wasn't Mussolini who made the trains run on time, just his own. Finally, there it is, the vast, cavernous maw of Milano Centrale, swallowing puny high-speed trains as if they were mere antipasti. We have seen some great stations on this journey. St Pancras, the Gare du Nord, Strasbourg, but Milano Centrale is indisputably the great station. Vast, monumental, bombastic, it dwarfs its passengers and its trains. It's also probably far younger than many might expect. Built during the 1910s and 20s, the design changed frequently. Opening in 1931, it ended up with no discernible single architectural style, though it did not escape the influence of Mussolini's aesthetic. But despite such problematic twists, it really is more cathedral than station. After a more leisurely few hours on the rails, we're back on the real high-speed network. We're boarding what must be one of the most stylish trains around, externally at least, a Frecciarossa 1000 about to depart southwards. Frecciarossa means red arrow and is the most prestigious of Trenitalia's family of high-speed trains, with silver arrows and white arrows beneath. As we run a fast, limited stop train south, it's now pretty clear that I'm committing to the Italian peninsula. When I started searching for the furthest I could get in 24 hours, I started looking to the east. Lots of followers on social media thought likewise. However, the ability of Italian trains to eat up the kilometres and the fact that southern Italy is far further away than we think means the answer actually lies in the Mediterranean. Basically, our idea of distances is skewed by thinking of Italy as Western Europe, despite, for example, Palermo being twice as far from London as Prague is. We're at the new underground high-speed platforms at Bologna, the last stop before Roma. We're about to plunge under the Apennines. It's 78 kilometres from here to Florence, and 73 of those will be in tunnel. This is the face of someone who could really do with the espresso trolley to come round again soon. But we're on the Direttissima, arguably Europe's first purpose-built high-speed railway, racing on time through pitch-black Umbria towards the capital. Rome, they say, is the eternal city. Less so for me, as I've just 20 minutes to share the near-deserted monumental halls of Termini Station with the builders. It's a brilliant bit of post-war modernist architecture, and it's astonishing to think that less than 2 decades separate it from Milano Centrale. Less than a decade ago, people were performing the last rites for Europe's sleeper trains, killed by the budget airlines. In a remarkable turnaround, routes are now re-emerging across the continent. Italy, domestically, kept the faith and runs quite a network of Intercity Notte services, which is great, both generally and more specifically for efficient use of my limited time. The 11 PM from Roma conveys portions for both Palermo, Sicily's capital on its north coast, and ancient Syracusa on its east coast. You'll have noticed that means the train is heading for an island. So yes, tomorrow morning it will indeed be loaded onto Europe's last train ferry across the Straits of Messina. It's been 15 almost non-stop hours on the rails. Remarkably, 6 connections and 1,500 kilometres in, I'm exactly where my optimum schedule says I should be. But for now, from our cosy, nicely refurbished sleeper compartment, it's time for Turtle and I to say goodnight. It's a very nice, smooth riding sleeper, but Trenitalia do seem to have outsourced mattress supply to a local quarry, which is probably why I've been woken by this torrential rainstorm at 2 AM in Salerno. Okay, it's 5 AM and we're now deep into Calabria, mainland Italy's most southerly region. We're just pulling into the train's first official stop since leaving Roma, though we've clearly made lots of other service stops in the night. This is Lamezia Terme Centrale, which frankly is an odd name for a station 11 kilometres from the centre of the town of Lamezia Terme. The sleeper attendant has bought me my very Italian breakfast of an apricot tart, toasts and espresso, and we're now curving round the Calabrian coastline, the lights of Messina in Sicily clearly visible over the straits. We've just passed through the village of Scylla. The twin monsters Scylla and Charybdis of Greek mythology were in fact a dangerous shoal at Scylla and a whirlpool off the Sicilian shore that sailors had to navigate between in order to enter the Straits of Messina. This is, I'm afraid, the point where I disappoint a lot of people. It's just gone 6 AM and I'm getting off the sleeper at Villa San Giovanni, the last stop on the mainland, not staying on for the train ferry crossing. The train ferry is great fun, but not exactly a speedy process. By the time the carriages have been shunted onto the ferry, sailed slowly across the straits and unloaded again at Messina, our remaining less than 2 hours now would be more than used up. Minutes count now, and we can get further from St Pancras by sticking to the mainland. Here's the train ferry Scylla arriving from the island. And now I get the odd experience of watching my bed for the night be hauled off by the orange shunting loco to be placed in the ship's hold. The ferries are under constant theoretical threat from the construction of a bridge, but theory constantly collides with spiralling costs, corruption, and the difficulties of civil engineering in one of Europe's most active seismological zones. Silvio Berlusconi promised faithfully that bridge construction would begin in 2009, but they're just taking delivery of some new train ferries now in 2022. As we eke out our final kilometres, we're definitely on the more lowly trains. I don't think this push-pull regional train got quite the level of care in its aesthetics as the Frecciarossa did. This is the morning commuter service along the mainland shores of the Straits of Messina to the regional capital, Reggio di Calabria, or just Reggio as everyone here calls it. It's a grey morning, Sicily has disappeared back into the murk, and it's a quick run past permanently unfinished apartment blocks to Reggio's gleaming central station, our shortest hop of the journey. We've got just under 3/4 of an hour left before the deadline, and we're about to leap on our final train of the journey. We'll be continuing our coastal voyage on this rather rowdy thing. It's taken us 1,900 kilometres before we've got on a train with a diesel engine under the floor, rather than nice silent electrics. Hugging the shore, our little train is speeding round onto the soft underside of the toe of Italy. Somewhere along here, the Tyrrhenian Sea merges seamlessly into the Ionian Sea. It's 7:45 and this is Melito di Portosalvo, the most southerly town in mainland Italy. But we've still got time to edge a bit further from St Pancras by continuing east. Or, at least we should. It's single track from here and the Reggio bound train is late. We can't leave until it's cleared the line. Here it is. Andiamo! We're scheduled to be at the next station with 7 minutes to spare. We're leaving here about 6 minutes late. We've got about 2 minutes. Come on! I broke my promise. We did end up with some of that Phileas Fogg rubbish in the end. Working on spreadsheets in my London living room, I reckoned you could get to the little Calabrian seaside resort of Bova Marina in 23 hours and 52 minutes. The reality? We did it in 23 hours, 59 minutes and 15 seconds. Trenitalia kept us guessing to the very end, but on the timetables of March 2022, Bova Marina, 1,964.6 kilometres from the St Pancras buffer stops as the crow flies, really is the furthest you can get by train from London in 24 hours. It's wonderful to step out of Bova Marina station into this most low-key Italian of squares. All the crucial ingredients: a pasticceria and bar, a fountain, a pink church and some old men gossiping. But there's something almost unique about the town too. The Greco-Calabrian dialect spoken and written locally, dating back millennia to the dominance of ancient Greece. I'll be back to town for a third breakfast shortly, but let's go find the sea. It's been quite the journey, at once fun and nerve-wracking, energising and fatiguing. It's been a nice nostalgic experience to race around Europe on an Interrail pass in the ticket's 50th birthday year. I've seen some great scenery, travelled on some fantastic trains and some mediocre ones, and even eaten some good food. And it's wonderful to end up here in remarkable Botham Arena, a place I'd never have seen otherwise. And that's the great thing about train travel, the little discoveries you'd miss if you just jump from city to city. If this has encouraged you to travel Europe by train, fantastic. We need to reduce our short-haul flights. But please, don't travel like me. Take it more slowly and don't have 8 hairbreadth connections nagging at your mind constantly. Trains don't have to be slow travel, but they ought to be relaxing. So here we are at Botham Arena. Thank you so much for travelling with me over the last 23 hours, 59 minutes and 15 seconds from St Pancras. I hope you've had as much fun as I have. Amazing that we got here. Train's just about worked. One of the end of the world feelings of this place, right here on the grey beach by the Ionian Sea. And, goodbye from me and Turtle.